Welcome to Kidmin Backstage, a place where we talk about kids ministry and take a peek behind the scenes. We try to share a little bit of what we've learned that works for us and some of our failures so you can avoid them. We release a new episode every Friday, and this is your Backstage Pass to see the magic or disaster that happens behind the scenes of our kids ministry. I'm your host, Gabe Baker, and today I am joined by Brother Kyle.
Hey.
How's it going?
It's good. It's been a long day. We had a great service, and just basking in what we just saw. A couple people getting baptized and people getting the Holy Ghost, and
man, awesome
to watch.
Yeah, it was very, very good. It was really cool.
We've been having some really amazing services, so I'm just enjoying it.
Yep. And we got Brother Nathan Cox coming, Brother Cornelius Williams.
Man, that was quite the announcement. Threw some people off. We're always in this time of year, like just focused on Heart of Christmas and don't even think about all that kind of stuff. And they're like, "Oh man, that's awesome.
Good. It'll be really good." All right, well, what are we talking about today?
Well, Brother Gabe, the rent is due.
The rent is due. Oh, dreaded words, right? So, this is something, it came from a quote. Let's see, I wrote it down here. Rory Vaden, I don't know if he coined it. He's where I read it the first time, but he says, success is not owned. It is rented, and the rent is due every day. So that's kind of what we're talking about today is great teams, great leaders. They don't stay great by accident.
Right.
Once in a while we do hear about one-offs, like, somebody did something incredible but it quickly fades usually, but the ones that you just keep on hearing about whether it's in the business world or in the news or even in the church world, you keep on hearing a name pop up and in a good way,
right.
Hopefully. And so the other example I'd like to give is the couple old men sitting on the porch, reminiscing about that touchdown that they made in high school.
Yeah, I've heard those guys talking.
Yeah, and so it's fine to look back at everything, but is that the most recent victory?
50 years ago when you're in high school, and that's the only success you can talk about. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So the rent is due. You have to be successful in any endeavor, and of course we're talking about ministry. You have to you have to focus on it today, and again today, and again today.
Right. Yeah, I looked up quotes and stuff like that. I like finding little things, and this one was accredited to somebody named Brian Tracy. I'm not sure who this individual was. He says there is an interesting point about the price of success. It must always be paid in full and in advance. And everyone wants to be successful. Everyone wants to be healthy, happy, thin, and rich. But most people are not willing to pay the price. And I just that just really struck me, and it's so true. All of us want to have success, but are we willing? That's a given. Nobody wants to be like, oh yeah, I want to fail in anything they do, right?
Yeah.
But the question we have to ask ourselves is, are we willing to pay the price and make the sacrifices necessary to be successful? And do we realize that those sacrifices come every single day, like you were saying? It's not just something we do one time and then we're just good, or it's like once a week or it's literally an everyday thing that we have to commit ourselves to. Yeah,
and I would even say, in my mind, a lot of things that's the success is day in, day out. Nothing super flashy.
Right.
I've said so many times I like this example so much, I guess, but David and Goliath.
Yeah.
David, his spotlight moment was with Goliath, but there was a foundation way before anybody even knew his name. He talked with God, communed with God, and had the Spirit of God on his life, and that's why he got the spotlight moment.
There was a daily sacrifice that David made. You can't read Psalms and not realize that David every single day was sacrificing. And even when he got to the highest position of his life and he was king, he was still sacrificing every single day and pouring himself out to God. And that's why he was called a man after God's own heart, is because he was willing to make those sacrifices every single day. He didn't care when he became successful, he was still willing to tear off the visuals of success, his kingly robes, and dance before the Lord and sacrifice and humility. He was having people make fun of him, and he knew that people were probably giving him a hard time, but he didn't care. He was willing to make those sacrifices.
Priorities, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about too is the question that we have to ask ourselves is, how are we measuring our success? Is it based on our own will and our own vision, or is it God's vision? Is it God's successes? And we have to quit looking at success and measuring it based on our own thought processes and our own ideas, because even some of those, what we would think to be failures, are actually successes for God. And we just have to kind of reevaluate sometimes and realize, oh no, what the devil meant for evil, God meant for good. And these little things I've been going through actually are to rewrite my story and to do things in my life that I couldn't even imagine that God was trying to do through me. And so,
and I think that's important to define success. I mean, this isn't just about success, but to define success correctly, because so often, and I think it is not a buzzword, but a buzz thing. That it's not just about money, and that used to be a big thing.
Right.
But it is easy to look at somebody that's wealthy and say, oh, they're successful. But I think that, like in the context of ministry, I think we're not against numbers at all. And so I think that is one measurement, though, of success. It's not the end all.
No.
But it is certainly a measurement of success. So there's many churches we know that are large, huge ministries, like bus ministries,
right?
And that's awesome. And so that's just one measure, though.
Right.
There's there's spirituality. There's things that are hard to quantify. There's in our particular situation, we have so many staff that there's staff development, and that's part of success. And we get to see that. And I get to see it with my own kids.
Yeah, and if you're a smaller church, I mean, even one soul saved is a huge success.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we don't want to rest and say, well, that's all we got to do now. We can just check out and we're good to go. But, I mean, you can't look at a church that, might run buses and have 300, 400, 500 kids coming in on Sunday school, and you hear about them saying, oh, we had 50 get the Holy Ghost and, 10 got baptized in Jesus' name, and think to yourself, oh, if I don't have that, I don't have success. Meanwhile, you have that one kid that's been coming on your bus that's got nothing going for himself. His parents are doing no good for him, and he gets the Holy Ghost. And you need to find that little things that just as successful as those big churches that are baptized in 50 or 100.
Well, and I like what you said, too, is you need to don't stop there.
Right.
And that's the rent is due every day, is don't stop there. If you have a blowout conference and you have, we just, a few months ago, we had I can't remember how many now, like 20 people get the Holy Ghost. It was awesome. It was really great doing it, Brother Ozell's church. And it was a really awesome conference. But now we need to, it's not like, planning your next vacation before your first vacation's over. It's not that, but it is saying, okay, that was awesome.
Right.
Thank God. And let's move forward. Let's use that as a launching pad to move forward.
Yeah, don't let... there was a message, I can't remember who it was, that pretty sure it might have been Brother Joey Boggs, but he talked about not getting too comfortable as far as like resting in your successes and just being like, okay, now I'm good to go. It's like we want to appreciate it. We don't want to thank God for it. Of course, we don't want to sit there and ignore like it didn't happen, but we don't want to say, oh, that's all we need. We want to always be seeking more and be hungrier for a greater move or a greater touch or more people coming into the church.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, one of the things I wrote down here is, and I got this idea from John Maxwell, but vision leaks without daily attention. And so repetition gives vision its power. So I think that with vision, it's hard to sometimes communicate it properly.
Right.
Because what I have found, and of course I deal in kids ministry and youth ministry a lot, so it's probably even worse. But what I have found is about the time you're sick of saying it, and you're sure that everybody is just so tired of hearing you say it, they are just starting to hear it.
Yeah. The thing is that, when you have this vision that God's given you, or that you have in your eyes, and just, you can't lose sight of it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to keep your eyes focused on it. And when you realize, and you got to convey that to your team as well. And you got to recognize in those moments when either one, maybe you've lost a little bit of the vision, or two, you recognize where your team maybe is, and that's through actions. Through yourself, what have you been doing, and also through your team. Does it look like they're still into it? Does it look like they're putting as much effort into the songs or that you might be doing, or the acting parts, or are you hearing as many success stories from if you have like individual classrooms? Some of the churches run that way, where they have certain age groups. Are you hearing just as many successes as you've always had? And if you hadn't, you got to be like, have they lost the vision a little bit? And then that's when you recognize, okay, I need to reestablish what our vision is, and help them to recognize, hey, this is where we're trying to go. Mm-hmm. This is what we're trying to do, and don't lose sight of what we're trying to shoot for.
Yeah, well, and a lot of times passion is tied to that vision.
Yeah.
So, I've taught a few times on a burnout, a session called, Don't Burn Out or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I didn't choose that. It was chosen, for me to teach that. And I've told people, I'm like, I do not want to be mean or, brash, but I kind of basically don't believe in burnout. Now I don't want to get blasted. I understand it, but I talk about that I would rather burn out than rust out. I think that a lot of times the burnout, and Lord help me not to eat these words or something, but I have felt it before. But I think that a lot of times the burnout or the lack of passion comes from a lack of that vision being super clear or right in front of you. And that's where, like, when you go to conferences and seminars and things like that, you can get inspired, because it often is not new stuff. Sometimes it is, but it's often reigniting something you already knew, a truth that you already knew, and it's a renewed passion, renewed vigor.
I mean, we're human beings, and what happens is if we get any kind of separation between us and a really amazing event, it's going to eventually lose its luster. I mean, we think about, like, marriage is often referred to as the honeymoon phase, and you get outside of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's always going to be this moment where you kind of get separated from that event, and you almost forget what it felt like. You almost forget the excitement. You almost forget the joy that you felt. And so we just need to occasionally just remind ourselves, like, hey, like, let's not forget the excitement. When God first cast the vision, or my pastor first cast the vision on this situation, and I was so hungry, I was so on fire and just ready. Like, sometimes you just need to reestablish that. And it's something that you have to do through prayer, because I do kind of believe in burnout. I get what you're saying about it. But like you said, in reality, what it really is that you've forgotten that excitement and that passion that you had in the very beginning, and you just need for God to help you remember where things are going, and what the main, let the main thing be the main thing, and what's really important, and just have God reestablish that fire that you once had.
Yeah, and I think going back to that vision leaks. It does, and I like what you said about the honeymoon phase or whatever, because it leaks. It leaks out. Like, you get excited about something. And if it's not tended to, I mean, just like a fire, if it's not tended to, it dies. It slowly dies down. It's usually not it doesn't drive off a cliff. It just slowly dies away, and that passion is gone. And so, you have to, and you as a leader, I mean, I guess one thing is you have to make sure that you're on point.
Right.
And then to be able to understand that the people that you're leading understand that they don't necessarily see the full vision like you do. And sometimes you can't share the whole vision. I don't want to get off track, but you can't, because sometimes a person way on the outer, circle, you can't, they don't even grasp it. They can't grasp like this full big picture. But you could give them a piece of the vision and draw them in,
Yeah, there's some, plans that God has that maybe he's given you or like he's given Pastor or myself that for some people would be just too hard to imagine because at this moment they're just kind of more in the now and in this time that you're in, and they can't really see past that, which is okay for that time. So if you share with them this just massive plan that just seems so insurmountable, it can kind of overwhelm them and then just be like, well, how do I even get there? So it's like, take somebody who is trying to get in some type of good physical shape, and you're like, they haven't worked out in 50 years or something crazy. They're just way out of shape. And you're like, all right, in 2 weeks we're going to run a marathon. And there's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, let's just calm it down a little bit. Let's walk before we run. Let's just help them focus on this moment right now. Like, hey, let's just start today and worry about this moment. And then when you recognize, like, hey, they're ready. Like, they've gotten it. They're kind of moving forward, and they're seeing what I'm seeing. Then maybe at some point you can share with them the grander plan. But yeah, you got to be careful that you don't overwhelm somebody, especially if they're like brand new in Sunday school. It's like their first day, and you're like, okay, this is where, and you're just,
here's where we're going.
And you're like, they're just like, oh, I'm just here to like help with.
Never mind. I don't want to volunteer.
My mom's calling for me. I need to go. Yeah. And it kind of leads into this other point that you had here, and that's about being clear about the vision too, is that we can never overcomplicate it. I think that we need to keep our vision clear to our team. If we overcomplicate our vision, no one can help in the process. We've established on other podcasts that it takes the whole team to fulfill the vision God has for our church. And if you overcomplicate it, nobody can understand what you're doing or how to get there. It's never going to do them any good, and it's never going to do the plan any good.
Well, and what I wrote is a simple, repeatable vision guides better behavior than a clever one that no one remembers.
Right? They're like, what did he say?
Yeah, what does that mean? It's like, oh, it sounded cool, it rhymed or whatever, but... Yeah, I definitely think the other thing is about the leakage, or the vision leaking, is when it's a longer term vision, and a bigger vision has to be longer term. Yeah. If we're not careful, going back to the rent is due every day, if we're not careful, even us as leaders, we can lose sight of that today. In our passion. Long time ago when I was pretty young. I was a teenager. I got a Franklin Covey planner. Are you familiar with that at all?
Yeah. I think we talked about this before.
Okay, yeah, probably. It was a big impact on my life, and this is because I'm so old. This was back before smartphones and all that were very popular.
All these young people have no idea what it's like.
Yeah, but I had this, and there's many people that use paper today, even still. But but I had this planner. But the reason I brought it up is the whole concept, and it's not unique to them, especially now. Right. But they kind of, I don't know if they pioneered it, but it just they made it popular at least. Is the idea of before you sit down and write a to-do list, that's not what the planner was designed to be. Is they had like this whole process. There's a whole training you can look up. I think they have YouTube videos of it too, but there's like classes you can go to on, you take like this big block of time to evaluate your life, essentially. I knew I was going to get dry throat, see? But you evaluate your life and you're like, okay, what is important to me? And so this is, it is, I think they're loosely Christian, but it so it applies differently for us being Christians. Right. But they'd say, what's important in my life? What's my values? And this is kind of based off of Benjamin Franklin and his virtues. And so it goes from there, and that's like top level, or if it's a pyramid, it's the bottom. That's the foundation of it. And then I'm simplifying this very much because I don't want to make this a boring podcast. But basically, you take that overall vision for your own life. Right. And then you plan in big blocks, like, okay, they even had this example, like you're on your deathbed and what do you want to be, what's your legacy kind of thing. And so you go from there and then you say, okay, in 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, a month, or a quarter, maybe, a month, this week, today. Right. And so that's the whole breakdown. And so what happens is your to-do list that you're writing today, obviously, I got to pick up the dry cleaning, whatever, there's things like that. But there's in there, it's reflecting your values that you set up. So all of that to say that there's a lot of value in that idea, that system, and that's what we need to look at when we have this long vision, this big vision.
Right.
You might have, like in Sunday school, okay, here's I'll be a little bit transparent. A vision that I have is, and I have not even been, I'm going to go, I have not even been to Sight and Sound Theater. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Sight and Sound Theater. Have you been?
I have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Sight and Sound Theater in Branson and somewhere else. What I envision from what I've heard about it, is that our Sunday school would one day be at that level every single week, but with an altar call and kids getting the Holy Ghost.
That would be amazing.
That's a vision that I have. Now, that's a really big vision. That goes back to what you're saying about, telling new people, okay, this is what we're going to do. Like, whoa, what? You're crazy. So I don't know if it'll ever happen or not.
God willing.
But that's an example of, okay, so what are we doing? And I'm not saying that we're living this out. We don't necessarily. But there are some certain things that I'm doing that are steps in that direction.
Right. Well, like we said before, it's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yeah.
And so this big vision that God's given us, we all know that God's kingdom is so much bigger than we could imagine. So we're never going to achieve that ultimate goal that God has immediately or in one step. It's going to take this daily dedication, these little things as we move along. It's just adding the pieces to this puzzle. And today I'm doing this, then tomorrow I'm doing that, and then the next day I'm doing this. And it's like, if we only looked at the bigger picture and not the little things to get there, we can even get overwhelmed ourselves. I have this idea that I'm working on, and I've talked with Pastor about of developing a book to do a new convert class in our church, and it's like a 12-week class is kind of where I'm at this point that I'm thinking of, and it seems very. I've ordered a few examples from other books, and I've looked at them, kind of how they're set up, and it's just like, man, this is overwhelming. If I only looked at the end product and not thought about the little things to get there, it can be a little bit what I feel to be too much for me. But if I'm looking at it every single day, just in this little bit, like, today I'm going to work on the cover, and then tomorrow I'm going to maybe develop what the inside pages will look like, and then that kind of stuff. It makes things so much easier. They're looking at those little tasks instead of the bigger tasks, and then that'll help out quite a bit. I think.
And one of the things, this is something I struggle with, and Pastor is incredible at, is those little tasks can seem so insignificant that it seemed like not a big deal to miss it today. It's like, well, I'm not going to write, I'm not going to write the 5 pages today or whatever, because it's just that. But that's the key, is like saying, no, that's what success looks like, is that I wrote my 5 pages today.
Well, and being transparent, just like you were, me and Pastor had that conversation like 6 months ago. And the only thing I've done since then is the cover. But and I've got all these other things going on too. But it's just like, it can. What happens is like, it's one day is like, well, I can work on it tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes like, well, I got this other stuff going on too. So then it's like, for you and I, when we have these busy schedules, like, if today is the day that we have available, we need to work on it today. There isn't tomorrow. Tomorrow isn't an option, because tomorrow I have something else going on. And so I think it's actually beneficial to look at it that way. Like, no, this is the time I have. Today is the day. I'm going to work on it right now. Tomorrow isn't even an option to me. Even if you have the availability tomorrow, look at it as if you don't, and just say, nope, today has to be the day. I have a moment right now. Even if it's 15 minutes, I'm going to work on it today. And like, tomorrow doesn't even exist. It's like, tomorrow's not an option to me. I'm going to work on it today. And you got to commit yourself to that, because it's not going to be easy. None of the stuff, we're not sitting here and saying like we have it all figured out and it's just like simple. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to, but it's worth it. It's worth it.
And and knowing that daily, to reference John C. Maxwell again, one of my favorite books he has, Today Matters. It makes a big difference. Well, another point that I wrote down is culture isn't what you declare, it's what you reinforce. We kind of just talked about this, but like small behaviors can shape big culture.
Right.
And I heard somebody say this, and I wrote it down a little bit differently, but I heard somebody say on a podcast, what you permit, you promote. And it got me like a knife in the gut. And so what you allow, you endorse.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that there's a line, obviously, a balance.
Right.
You can't be militant. But I think that we can easily, in leadership, let things slide.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, you're endorsing that. By just not addressing it.
Yeah, we must establish a God-focused biblical culture in our Sunday school or whatever ministry we have. It's critical. I mean, we can't let the culture slip away because it doesn't take long and it doesn't take much for it to happen. And when it happens, it's really hard to recover once it gets out of control. Hopefully nobody I don't think anybody from my workplace is going to listen to this, but it's happened at my workplace, and it started with little things. And I'm not saying that's like crazy terrible or whatever like that. It's still a great place to work, but it's kind of spiraled out of control to this place now where it's like, at least the people in charge at this moment, in my opinion, there's no way that they're going to be able to bring it back to where it was before. But it all started with a little stuff here, little stuff there, and it was never this big giant thing, a big giant event. It was these little things along the way, and they lost the culture that there had been established years ago, and that was worked really hard to establish. And we all are going to work really hard to try to establish success and excellence in our Sunday schools, and we cannot afford to allow these little things to slip in and to destroy that culture that we've built up. And like you're saying, you're not trying to be militant or disrespectful or rude or mean to people, but we want it to be excellent. We want it to be successful, and we can't let these little things slip in and destroy it.
Yeah, well, and it's also being proactive. Like, things not tended to naturally deteriorate.
Oh, for sure.
So you think of all the RVs across the U.S. There's so many RVs that were nice that are sitting in people's driveways that have leaks and different things. Because and then you think of like house sitting or whatever. Yeah. People want somebody in their house and it to be lived in while they're gone, so that it's because things naturally will deteriorate if they're not tended to. Yeah. And so it could even be that in your ministry, in your Sunday school or whatever ministry it is, it could not just be like somebody is, the devil got hold of them or something, or even that they're just, there's a bad culture seeping in. It could just be that you're not tending to the vision. Yeah. Because vision leaks. Yeah. Going back to that. And so when you don't tend to that culture daily or weekly, whatever your contact point is, when you don't tend to that, then it will naturally deteriorate.
Yep. Well, this note you have here is perfect. It says consistency builds trust.
Yes.
The thing is the more consistent you are with your team, they will trust the vision and they will trust your leadership, and I think you'll have a lot less issues to tend to on a regular basis because you're being consistent with them. And if you just slack up and let it slip and like, oh, well, today we'll be okay with not doing this or not doing that, and you just can't do that. If you're consistent, they'll respect you a lot more for that. Yeah.
A good example of that is like practice, for example. We, for a while, we got into a bad habit of, in practice, we just did a script run through. And we didn't really do blocking. Yeah. We didn't practice, lines and stuff. And so we've changed that culture, and we basically don't even do a script run through. We come in and we just roll right into practicing, and we're up on our feet, out of our seats, and we're practicing. And so I like what you said, though. It made me think of this, is if I show up today and I say, hey, you know what, guys, we're going to take it easy today and go through, do a script run through. The short term, everybody loves you. Right? The short term is like, I can sip my coffee. And we'll just do a script run through. And Sunday school be fine. Okay. It'll do okay. But in the long term, I've ebbed away what you just talked about, that trust. Yeah. I've ebbed away that trust, because now it's like, Well, why do I need to show up
right.
for practice then?
Well, then it's like the next time you're like, okay, we're going to go back to doing what we did before and do it. They're like, I mean, why? We didn't do that last week.
Yeah, we're going to go all in today. Where were you? You didn't show up.
Wrong or right, I mean, people can lose that motivation or that vision so fast, and so that one time of you slacking like that and going back to that old way, then to retain or go back to what we had before that you've worked so hard to build that practice the way we practice now, it'll be really hard to get that back if you slack up that one time.
Yeah. Okay, so I wrote this: greatness requires today's effort, not yesterday's reputation. And so and this is kind of the crux of everything we're talking about. But so I want to go back to the example you talked about early on, when especially if you're a smaller Sunday school and somebody gets the Holy Ghost, we celebrate that as a success. Right. But you also said, but you don't just sit there on that. You don't just sit there on that success. So past success is a starting point. Right. It's not a shield. Like, well, but look at what we did. Look at that touchdown I did in high school.
Right. I was thinking this because I just recently read an article that President Trump is going to have we're going back to the moon. And so I was thinking about that landing on the moon didn't start that day. It was built upon these little successes along the way, and they didn't stop at that one success, whether it be the material they designed for the ship or the propellant or whatever it was. They were excited about it. Because it took a lot of work to get there, and so they were happy. They were successful. They were like, "Oh, this is amazing." But this doesn't stop here. We need to go to the next thing, because we can't just get to the moon by this one step. It takes another step. And so then they get to the next thing, and it's like they got excited. And maybe the first time they did that little pretend landing with the computer program, they're like, oh, this is amazing. But if they just stopped there, then they would never have actually gone to the moon. It's like, okay, that was great. We're happy about it. They probably celebrated for a little while, but it's like, okay, let's move to the next spot. Yeah. And so we're building upon each of these other successes, one after another after another. And it's when we build brick after brick after brick, and then finally we get to that place where all these successes have led to this point, and that is putting a man on the moon, or getting somebody, a family brought in, or growing our church to double, or whatever it is that God's trying to take us.
Well, it's kind of like, we're getting close to our time, but it's kind of like this too. In fact, I just actually realized I wrote this down, kind of this idea, but I said the rent looks different each day, but it's always due. So going back to kind of the vision, even as a leader, I have found this with myself, is there have been things personally and in Sunday school and in youth that I've strived for, like, oh, this is the pinnacle. Right. And some of those things are just routine now. So isn't that funny how that changes? Yeah. Okay, I'll give you an example. This is music ministry. Way back in the day, I was the music director. And I remember having a conversation with Pastor about one day, someday, we will have pre-service practice. Someday we'll get people come early enough to where we will practice before service. And even with that, we were also, one day we will do a music practice once a week. We will have a music practice. It seems silly to hear that phrase now, because we pre-service practice every service. We have weekly practice that's like 3 hours long because of different groups. And it's normal routine. But here's the thing, is that's now the baseline.
Yeah. Where are we going from here?
And where are we going from here? Like, it's not necessarily more practices, but it's like, okay, the quality of the practice or whatever. And so I guess just saying all of that, like the rent looks different, not necessarily each day, but it can look different. 5 years from now, it might be a totally different landscape. It doesn't mean that we're going in the wrong direction. It doesn't mean that at all. Right. And it doesn't even mean that we have to adjust direction. It just means that we get high enough up the mountain to see further, so we can go up higher.
Right. Well, and then too, that reminds me too that those situations, it's good to remind your team where you've come from before. So there's been a conversation where pastors had with us in the music department that this is where it used to be. This is when I first took this over. We didn't have this and this and this, and me and Brother Gabe talked about. He's talked to us about that. So he's letting us know, like, hey, I know you guys think this is just kind of normal what we do every week. But that's not. We've come from here. We're here at this point now, but this is not the end, and we're not finished. We want to go further and grow higher, because we all think, and we have an amazing music department. And some of us, not me, but I know there's people that feel like, oh, this is the best we can get. So it's nice to have that reminder every once in a while, like, hey, no, we've come from here, we've gotten to this point now, but this is not it. We got further and further and go. Yeah. The rent is different.
The rent is different. Yeah. All right. Well, I think with that we are over our time, so I think that's a wrap.